raising market standards is incredibly important. We're talking about one of the most common and ubiquitous commodities in the world. And if we don't find a sustainable future for it, we will all suffer. Not just great apes, not just forests, the human beings, and as I say, our future. We're very, very pleased to be able to present this topic at the first United Nations Environment Assembly, because sustainable palm oil, or any sustainable commodity, has an important role to play. And this, if you will, is a perfect case study of a commodity that, if done properly and sustainably, can make a dramatic impact on the world. Done improperly and unsustainably can have devastating effects. Introduced to my left from Indonesia is Sri Parwati Murwani Budisusanti. She's the Assistant Deputy Minister of Environment for Indonesia. Next, Dr. Bernice Adiku-Heloo. She's the Deputy Minister of Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation for Ghana. Next is Rosemary Addico, the Program Manager for Oil Palm of the SOLIDARIDAD Advisory Group. Next is Darrel, the Secretary General of the Roundtable Sustainable Palm Oil, RSPO. And next to Darrel is Elizabeth Clarke, the Business and Sustainability Manager for the Zoological Society of London, ZSL.
On the other hand, this is the palm oil initiative and action toward sustainability. The best practice provided in the stringent standard operation procedure, or SOE, for palm oil plantation has already been implemented. Among other, maximizing utilization of palm oil biomass and waste production, implementing biological control such as beneficial plant, natural predator, pathogen, and bacteria. These are also some action to address the three categories of high conservation value forests, and also waste utilization and is commonly used and practiced in Indonesia palm oil plantation and industry, using zero emission concept, covering minimizing waste generated, total utilizing waste generated, and increasing total productivity.
Very much for behalf of the government of Ghana, wishes to express our felicitations to everybody here, and especially to the organizers for giving Ghana the opportunity to share what we have done so far in the area of palm oil production. Let me be quick to say that Ghana is not the largest oil palm production country in Africa, but we have interventions that make the prospects look very bright for our country. Oil in Ghana became a commercial crop in the beginning of the 19th century. Originally, the sector was based on wild palm harvesting, but from the 1850 onwards, oil palm evolved to an agricultural crop that cultivated either in small farms or in plantations. This led to the oil becoming the principal export of Ghana in the 19th century and accounted for 75% of Ghana's export volumes. However, in the 20th century, a lot changed, and at present, Ghana has over 350,000 hectares of oil palm, becoming the principal export in the 19th century and accounted for 75% of Ghana's export volumes. Currently, Ghana has an unmet demand for over 100,000 tons of palm oil annually. In view of this situation, the government has put in place several interventions with the support of development partners to relaunch and develop the palm oil sector to boost productivity and increase production. Let me mention some of the interventions that our government has put in place of late. 3,000 hectares outgrower projects with funding from an Agence Française Development is ongoing. Expansion of seed nuts production capacity of upgrade from 2 million to 5 million seeds per nuts per year under a World Bank sponsored project. Cultivation of over 10,000 hectares small-scale farms under a special presidential initiative on oil palm. And finally, development of an oil palm master plan for Ghana with support from AFT. What is the characteristics of the palm oil sector? The oil palm industry is characterized by large, medium, and small-scale operators engaged in production, processing, and marketing. The industrial subsector consists of medium and large-scale oil palm plantations and mills using more efficient technology, economies of scale, and has larger productivity in terms of yields and mill extraction rates and better quality crude oil, CPO. Small-scale producers, accounting for about 70%, are primarily made up of women who either sell the fruit to processors or produce oil for sale to local markets. The small-scale subsector is also characterized by low-yielding oil palm varieties, low productivity of farms and mills, low-quality CPO, which is sold in a village or at small markets, mainly for domestic consumption. The structure of the oil palm industry in Ghana has been shaped by the presence of two different markets, namely home consumption and industrial use in domestic manufacturing. As a result of all these, Ghana's industry has two sub-sectors which are largely separate. The industry provides income for many rural people who work in large and medium plantations and mills. What is the relevance of the palm oil industry to Ghana? The oil palm is the second most important tree crop in the Ghanaian economy after cocoa. It is one of the leading cash crops in the rural economy, especially in the forest belts of Ghana. Oil palm is an essential oil seed, produces many products, both for domestic consumption and as inputs for the industrial sector. The sector is also attracting more investment than before, and this is coming from both local and foreign investors. How do we sustain our oil palm industry? Sustainable palm oil production in Ghana comes with social, economic, and environmental issues, and these include the following. At the social front, we have poor worker health and safety, especially at the small mills. We also have non-use of personal protective clothing at the smaller order levels. On the economic front, we have very high cost of production, leading to very low yields, between 10 to 12 tons of acreage per year for plantations and between 3 to 6 tons for the small scale holders.
On Clarke field programs, we have applied conservation science in about 50 countries around the world. And so through that, we've actually had quite a bit of exposure to the supply side of palm oil, having worked in Indonesia with the palm oil industry for over 10 years now, with the RSPO for many years, and more recently in West Africa, specifically in Cameroon, but also in roadshows in West Africa. And then we also have quite a bit of exposure as well to the demand side. So having our headquarters based in London and two zoos based in the UK, we are familiar, with consumers, consumer facing, and how do we inspire and engage on key messages. We do all consume palm oil, none of us in this room. And as Darrel pointed out, there are still those consumers out there, if they haven't heard about palm oil, they're associated with negative things, and they might associate it with chopping down the tree in order to extract the oil, so a lot of misunderstanding. And also just finally on that note as well, we've been working with DEFRA, the UK government as well, on their commitment to 100% certified sustainable palm oil procurement target. Next slide, please. I just want to start off by saying that the Zoological Society of London very much understands the importance of palm oil as a very versatile oil. It's all been said before. That is very high yielding oil, and that it is incredibly important for development in many regions across the tropical belt. But really important to maximising the profits of that development, as set out by Darrel, is it really needs to be done sustainably and responsibly. We're going to maximise that. Drilling down a little bit further into the plantation level, concession site level. So again, we've worked for many years now. 10 years ago, we actually started in working with the oil palm sector by actually working with the grower to understand Sumatran tigers and oil palm landscape, and that's now built into working with the RSPO and Budisusanti and others about how do we create the tools in order to implement best practice on the ground, training companies to try and give them the power to be able to take control of their sustainability and their environmental commitments. And we're trying to understand what are the threats and issues and the barriers and how do we overcome them. Next slide, please. And one of the more exciting recent developments, which Darrel alluded to, is this ability now to start to use real sort of data analysis techniques and systems that have been endorsed by the RSPO for monitoring and managing threats to high conservation values, where you can really start to map and manage your landscape as a grower and start to develop sort of key performance indicators, if you like, so that you can actually begin to show and verify that you are implementing policies and sustainable can be sustainable. So there's an example up there of a company that's been managing incidents of illegal mining in its concession site. Next slide, please. Next. And then another aspect of this toolkit is a mapping component. And so we've been working quite closely with the RSPO Secretariat and also WRI, World Resources Institute's Global Forest Watch, to support a resolution that went through at the last Roundtable General Assembly, looking at transparency and concession site boundaries. And the reason this is important is that what we talked about before about transparency and building trust in the industry, building strong, sustainable supply chains that have traceability. So I think perhaps we all, if we cast our minds back, might remember the smog and the haze in Southeast Asia of last year, and that really did a tremendous amount of negative impact and damage to palm oil industry's reputation and the RSPO's reputation. And so really by starting to have this kind of information more open and transparently available, we can start to feed in systems such as fire alert management systems, where we can more promptly provide the evidence as to who might have been involved in a fire and wasn't, and how was it controlled and how was it managed, to provide that reassurance that those downstream stakeholders in the buyer countries, the investors and the finances are looking for. Next, please. And next. And so where do we go from there? And so I think Darrel said in a nutshell, I'm going back down to those site level tools again, about how we start to rebuild that credibility in the industry and show that sustainable can be sustainable. Can we move to a model of better production of KPIs and supporting evidence at the site level, and we begin to share that information through our supply chains in terms of traceability. And coupled with that as well, how do we start to harmonise our auditing processes, be they at the national level, be they different certification schemes, and provide that clarity and that framework that all stakeholders can understand and get behind. Because I do think there's a lot of confusion at the moment about different emerging standards and schemes. And I think really one of that is about building a scenario of transparency and trust in the industry, and that's something that I was very happy to be supporting. And I think I'll close there. Thank you.